Hey, Adam.
What's up, Peter?
What does this remind you of?
Well, it should remind me of like a white sandy beach and a fruity mocktail in my hand and beautiful people scampering about the beach. But what it actually reminds me of is that summer of wedding gigs I did before I moved to New York.
In Brazil, though, right?
No, it was like in Fenton, Missouri. I'm Adam Manis.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Music Explored.
Explored today brought to you by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for jazz lesson needs. Peter, what do we got?
This is super exciting. Look at this. We have Getz Gilberto.
Wait, say that again?
Getz Gilberto.
It's
Stan
Getz.
Getz and João Gilberto.
João
I'm just trying to pronounce it right.
João Gilberto. Is it Gilberto or Gilberto?
Gilberto.
So is it Getz or Jets?
It's definitely Getz. Stan Getz.
So Getz
João
with a G,
Gilberto.
but Gilberto with a G.
It's funny that it's so hard to say this because this is one of the most famous jazz records. If it is a jazz record, we're going to talk about that. We're
I
going to
think
get
it
into
is.
some
But
fun
yeah,
stuff.
it is one of
You
the
know
most
what I mean?
famous albums of all time.
Yeah, but it's one of those records that is not necessarily, like, so many people have heard this. It's played so many different places.
Ubiquitous.
From attentive listening with an LP like we're going to do today, all the way to walking through an airport in Rio de Janeiro, or it could be anywhere. You could be in Memphis, Tennessee, and you might hear some of this. So it's ubiquitous. It's heard a lot. This is the actual LP. And I don't know if you remember this, Adam. This is not just a hipster vessel here, although it is that. Do you remember what is inside of here?
An album, I hope.
Yes. Do you remember the size? Look at that. That's the original. No,
Why
I'm
were
just
they
kidding.
so
That's
small?
a joke. That's a joke. That was a pun. It took us three times to pull this off.
What?
Look at this. The original Jazz of America is on Verve.
That's true.
The Wit of America is on Verve.
The Wit of America
I don't know
is
why
on
it says
Verve?
that. That's what it says. Look.
I wonder if Verve was a big comedy album.
Yeah, I don't know about this, but this is original. This is yellow. Producer Caleb over there is very nervous as I handle this.
If anybody
He
is
says
a record historian in the chat, and you know why Verve would be the Wit of America is on Verve, why that would be their saying.
You know what this LP,
Let us know.
Kind of any LPs, but especially from this time period. This came out in 1964, my friend.
March 1964.
I remember 64 fondly.
Well, you were not born yet.
I was not born yet, but I do remember it from movies and from like pictures. You know what this reminds me of? Pictures of my mom and my dad in 1964.
Totally.
My mom with a big Mary Mecco dress.
Oh, beautiful.
She was little, big dress, big beehive hair, a lot of that kind of stuff going on. But also think about who would have had this album. And maybe this is how it was passed down to producer Caleb. Nope, it was bought at Dead Wax for $15 actually. Okay. But anyway, these would have been like, when what would be grandmas now, but at the time they were young hip moms, would have the console LP.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Like with the speakers, everything built in.
It was a piece of furniture in your living room.
You know what else would be sitting next to it?
What's that?
Along with this record?
What's that?
A fondue.
A fondue.
A fondue maker. A fondue vessel, right?
Oh my gosh. Those were the days. Just melted cheese and Stan Getz blaring through your speakers on your what looked like a coffee table.
Right, exactly. Good stuff. Okay, so we're going to get into all this. Excited to listen to this. I don't know this record super well, even though we're talking about it's ubiquitous. I've been listening to it the last couple of days, which has been fun. And there was a time when I just never I never dove into this as a musician, although I played all these tunes.
Yeah.
Been to Brazil, loved them. This is almost every tune on here, except for I believe one is Antonio Carlos Jobim, Tom Jobim, of course.
Yeah.
And he's playing piano on here. So it's very much a Jobim record as much. In fact, sometimes people say that, like Getz plays Jobim is like the way they refer to this.
I know this very well, but not as this album. In the early 90s, Verve re-released all of the Stan Getz Bossa Nova stuff. I'm going to blank on what it was called.
Oh, maybe it was
like a
plays
double
Jobim
CD.
or something.
It might have been, but it was a big double CD case.
With that weird reissue thing they were doing.
It was... Yeah, I don't know I can't even remember the cover. But you know those big double CD cases?
Yeah.
It was in one of those. My dad got it.
Those were not environmentally friendly at all.
They were definitely not. My dad got it in the early 90s in the big non-environmentally friendly cases. And I know it was 4 CDs. It was a 4 CD set. That's right.
Yeah.
It was like 4 CDs of Stan Getz playing Brazilian music.
Right.
And of course, this was on there.
Right.
And so I know all of these tunes from that, but I don't know, like, it's funny, I don't know what albums they're from. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I've heard it so much because it was always on in the house, in the car, but I don't know the the particular albums that these were all from.
And I actually think that this is Stan Getz did a couple records before this. Everyone always thinks this is when Bossa Nova showed up in the U.S. and Stan Getz. He had actually done a couple of records before this without Joao. And there was other, like Quincy Jones, I know but this was very much like already a few years into like the Bossa Nova craze or whatever. So I don't know.
Apparently the Bossa Nova craze was nearly over in Brazil by the time this album came out.
Right. And then exactly. Shall we jump in? Am I driving today? Do I have the license to drive? Is that me?
Well, let me give you a little bit of cultural context, Peter, because there's a piece of cultural context here that is going to be, I think, very relevant to the popularity of this album and then why this was sort of the last very, very popular Bossa Nova album, or one of the last ones anyway.
Yeah.
So the cultural context, the number one movie in America was It's a Mad, 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 Mad World with Spencer Tracy. The number one,
seen it.
Never saw it either.
Never heard of it.
The number one TV show I had seen on many reruns.
Me too.
Bonanza.
Yes, Bonanza.
Bonanza followed by F Troop. Give me a break, man. You can't go wrong.
KPLR TV.
Hell yeah.
Channel 11.
Now, the number one album, 1964, March, Meet the Beatles. This was the Beatles' first big stint coming to America with an album. They were about to head to the States that summer. And so Meet the Beatles was this big, huge album. I Want to Hold Your Hand. And I think, Peter, we could actually just draw a nice line in the sand here that this might have been the last super popular jazz album.
Right.
Because once the Beatles come around and that Brit rock, the Beatles, the Stones, it turns into
Elvis
psychedelic.
Presley, which was already...
they were already competing with Elvis and all of these other people. But now, once
Chuck
the Beatles come in and bands start to come in, I think it's kind of over for the popularity of jazz in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then even like we did last time, we did Nefertiti, and they said, Miles's label was not happy with the numbers.
Yeah.
Post 1963, 64, right? So this is about the same time that the Beatles start taking over the world. So interesting cultural contents right there. And of course, the president of the United States was Lyndon Johnson.
Man, he's been the president for a lot of these records.
Johnson administration had a lot of good music going on.
Yeah, I think it's interesting if you could probably draw a line between 1959 and 1964. This was recorded in 63, but it came out in 64.
Yeah.
Was a huge record.
Huge.
Millions sold. I don't know if it was millions or sold that first year, but a lot. And I know that because it won Album of the Year.
Yeah, no,
one of the few jazz records that's ever won
the Grammy for Album of the Year, which is huge.
Yeah.
It was a number one hit album, millions sold.
Right. And then the shortened version of Girl from Ipanema, which we're probably going to listen to first. We'll listen to the original version with just Adhered Gilberto. Why do I say it like I'm Italian? I don't know.
I've always called this Getz Gilberto, but I guess I'm wrong. Is it Gilberto?
I think it's Gilberto.
Gilberto.
I really don't know. It's just fun.
I know we've got Brazilians that listen, including like really immortal Brazilian musicians like Romero Lubambo.
I'm gonna play you something that's gonna
text Romero. See what
I'm gonna play you something that's kind of weird. Are you ready for something weird?
Yeah.
Sheepishly, he said that. There's a weird subgenre on YouTube. Check this out. We might get dinged for playing this.
We are looking at how to pronounce this name, as well as how to say more interesting names from music, so make sure to stay tuned and consider subscribing for more learning. He was a Brazilian singer, songwriter, and guitarist. And a pioneer of the musical genre.
Stop. How can we trust this guy to tell us the correct pronunciation of Gilberto when he called it guitarist?
Because he's speaking in Brazilian Portuguese.
Okay.
You know how you know that? Because look at the Brazilian flags.
In the late 1950s, how do you say it? In Brazilian Portuguese, it is said as João Gilberto.
Gilberto. So it's a Gil.
Yeah, Gilberto. João Gilberto.
You got to put it in your nose.
Gilberto.
João.
Yeah.
Gilberto.
Isn't that a weird?
One more time, can I hear it? Back it up a little bit.
João Gilberto.
João
Gilberto. So Getz Gilberto.
Yeah.
Would be how to pronounce the album.
First name? Stan.
João. Stan Getz.
Stanley.
Can we say Getz?
No,
Getz Gilberto?
Getz, we can say whatever we want. Yeah.
Getz Gilberto.
Jobim. Yeah. So
Jobim.
So we've got that out of the way, right?
Yeah.
Shall we listen to a little bit of so this is the original version, not the reduced version of course, the famous Girl from Ipanema.
Olha que coisa mais linda, mais cheia de graça. Ela, menina que vem e que passa num doce balanço.
It's a great cover. I know we're going to get to that in accoutrement, but...
Joao's guitar playing is tasty.
What do you think of his voice, though, Peter?
I like it on this.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get to that. I love his phrasing.
Porque estou tão sozinho.
Oh. Tom Jobim just tasty at the keys.
É tão triste. A beleza que existe. A beleza que não é só minha, que também passa sozinha.
D flat major, not the F that it's commonly played in.
To me, this about his voice and about the quality of it. First of all, another great voice, but Zhao's voice and his style of singing, I think, is the culmination of the crooners.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So before microphones were invented, nobody sang like this.
Right.
You couldn't sing like this, and people couldn't hear you.
The feathery,
You can't be heard over even an acoustic guitar if you're singing like that. But once you have a microphone, you can get really close to it, and you can get way down in these parts of your voice that are almost inaudible.
And this is a brilliantly recorded album.
Absolutely.
You know,
it sounds amazing.
Sounds amazing. Phil Ramone,
crazy.
Who would have known,
crazy,
was the engineer. Well, makes sense. It was his studio.
But I mean, that style of singing, pioneered by Bing Crosby, Sinatra.
Yeah.
But I think this is like really the pinnacle, maybe the apex mountain of crooning.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we'll get into it later with maybe Chet Baker, same kind of thing.
Chet for sure.
But using the microphone as the instrument and just using this part of your voice that's so soft.
What's interesting is, I totally agree, the way Adhered versus Joao phrases this melody, very different. They were married at the time, but tasty. Is Stan kind of crooning on the saxophone a little bit?
100%.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he's using the microphone in a similar way. He'll open it up.
Yeah.
But that breathy tone, that works really well with microphones.
Yeah.
You know, you don't hear tenor players in the 30s and 40s playing a lot like this.
Right.
Even if someone like Ben Webster has this big sound.
Yep.
Not that Getz doesn't have a big sound, but he's obviously playing to the technology.
Getz definitely has some Ben Webster influence. Lester Young.
For sure.
Lester. But yeah, in the mix, the voices and the saxophone are so far out front. The drums. Now, I think this is Milton Banana on drums. Is he using brushes? That's brushes, right?
Yeah.
So demure.
I'm saying, if you're learning this song to play cocktail gigs or whatever, just to know it, this is such an easy solo to transcribe. Transcribe stands
it's a good solo.
And it's a beautiful way to learn how to get around those changes, which is not easy. There's tricky changes.
Yeah. This is Tom Jobim, the composer of this song.
Playing like an arranger, of course.
Exactly. I think we'll get into that.
He's my favorite, man. You ever hear Stoneflower? We should do Stoneflower at some point.
Yes. That's a great period for him. Is this a minimalist record?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, even down to the cover art.
Yeah. Even though Getz is pretty busy. Like, he's busy on this record, but I think is he playing on top of Adhered there a little bit? Listen to that bass groove. Boom, doom, doom. There's no boom, doom, 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 doom. No. Doom.
Everything Tom Jobim plays on the piano too. Oh, these perfect little punches.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a true, like, the rhythmic flair is coming from Joao's guitar. The piano is punctuating. And the guitar is just so consistent. Okay, so there was allegedly some, a little bit of contention in the studio between Joao and Getz, and Stan and Joao.
Getz and Gilberto.
Yes, yeah.
Getz.
And I think I was trying to figure out, because I'm like, sometimes it's those things where people are like, oh, they hate each other. I mean, like, there was a story about Betty Carter and Ray Charles. They did a session, a very young Betty Carter. It was a brilliant session, and had kind of a hit. I'm trying to remember what the tune was, but apparently they did not hit it off and met. And like Ray Charles, he kind of said some foul stuff about Betty and didn't know she was there because he was blind or whatever. And then they had this thing, but then they had this beautiful duet that they recorded. So sometimes something great can come out of that.
For sure.
But I think allegedly Joao did not like the way Stan Getz was rhythmically phrasing or approaching these Brazilian bossa nova grooves. And I mean, obviously people love this record. There's such a synergy there. But like check this out. Like the way the rhythm section's playing. Like Getz is kind of jazzing it up a little
floating.
bit.
He's floating. Yeah.
And so I can see how, like, I think it's a really cool effect. And
it's so funny we take it for granted now because this is what this was the first bossa nova most of us heard.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So that's what you just think it sounds like. It's great.
Yeah, but I could see how there was a little bit like it's like a different way of playing a little bit, you know.
You know, it's funny too with I don't know if a lot of people realize, but bossa nova as the style, this was very new here. And these are the people that kind of invented it, playing it. You know, João Gilberto, like when you hear Romero on one of his courses here at Open Studio, Bossa Nova Jazz Guitar, talk about the origins of it, it's the samba taken into apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And then you can't obviously fit the samba school drums into an apartment building, but you can fit an acoustic guitar, and that guitarist will mimic, you know, that sound. And then you get a songwriter like Tom Jobim who can take that sound on a guitar, on a piano, in a smaller environment, for these like parties in the 50s, and then this thing happens.
Right, but they weren't planning it as like for the early 60s with the fondue machine and the Mary Mecco dress, you know, and
but this fits that aesthetic, just happens to fit it perfectly,
but that was a little later.
Yeah, I think. The modern sound.
Yeah. Cool. Well, good. That's kind of, you know, getting us into the vibe here, right?
Yeah, let's talk about some bangers, Peter.
All right.
The track I always love, the one that I sing when I'm doing the dishes.
Yeah.
Sodanko Samba.
Well, that's good because can we combine? We're going to listen to that, right?
Yeah.
Can we combine that? Because I have that as my favorite solo.
Vai?
Yeah. No.
Vai.
Stan Getz.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good.
On Sodanko Samba. So let's check a little bit of that out. That could easily be my banger too, but Okay, so this intro is so, like, you talk about some things to study as a rhythm section playing. The way I believe Joao is playing the bass on the guitar, but maybe that's actual bass. I'm not sure. You probably could hear this. But the rhythm is so dialed in as soon as you start.
I think it's just guitar in the intro.
It's just guitar. Okay, so, but you hear he's like playing, must be with his thumb or something, playing the bass notes. But like the precision of this, there's nothing extra, but it's got the vibe and the flair, and it's got the syncopation, and it's got that kind of like, but it's actually like rhythmically just precise. There's no extra things.
That's Joao in a nutshell.
Yeah, but I mean, like, this could so easily, like, if somebody were to transcribe this and just play it off the page, it could come across as so bland and boring, and Ramada in Airport by Lambert Field. You know, like, that's why having the right vibe on this kind of music, there's such an art to that. Like, the science of it can seem simple to the point where people add too much stuff, even with the whole bass thing of like, like, they don't, when it's been doing well, it doesn't have all this. Check this out again. Listen to that bass. Boom, boom, boom.
Só danço samba, vai, vai, vai.
And then like those anticipations.
Só danço samba, vai. Só danço samba, vai, 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 vai.
This is as much samba as it gets in the Bossa Nova, I guess.
Só danço samba, vai.
Woo!
I know this
One
one
chord, right?
I've ripped that off so much.
Yeah.
Every samba I've ever played, I just try to play like Tom
Mas
Brady.
não sei, me cansei do calypso ao tchá-tchá-tchá. Só danço samba, só danço samba.
The front phrasing,
Vai,
Zhao,
vai, vai, vai.
he'll do a whole verse in the first 2 bars.
Right, right.
And this chill.
Vai.
Right.
Great solo.
This is a good song. But like that kind of stuff, sorry to even stop, because this is a really good solo. But it's like
I know,
it fits.
like he's with the
but I
Oscar
could see
Peterson
how
trio.
Zhao was probably like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? But it is. It's like it. This is almost like a fusion record in a way. You
Yeah.
know, like we think about like, oh, Getz is bringing the Bossa Nova here, and it's kind of like no, it's a Bossa Nova. It's a Brazilian group, you know, playing in a certain way, and Getz dancing in there, using the phrasing, like playing off of that in a really interesting way. But also, I think appreciating the simplicity that's around him. And like to me, this solo, I'm going to shut up and just let it play in a second. But it's like this solo, the reason I picked it was just he kind of goes crazy on this thing in a way that's like, and this is like one of the, isn't this early in the record or is this later? No, it's later in the record, so forget that. Anyway, let's check it out.
Só danço samba, vai.
Open it up. And especially when the key changes, that's when he really starts going crazy. It's like, Coleman Hawkins, that was what that sounded like. Ew.
Yeah.
Blues.
He uses range so well. He knows where his wolves are. He knows where the sound bites.
Yeah.
He uses it for really great effect.
Damn. This is a long ass solo for a Grammy Album of the Year record. Gilberto. Perfect voicing. Ha. The way Zhao is comping to, like it literally doesn't matter what Stan Getz does. Nothing. He doesn't react to anything he plays.
It's just the engine. He's the engine
Yeah.
for it.
And even Joe Beam, he doesn't like he listens and is like going in there, but it's not like that kind of interactive thing. It's a weird track, actually.
Yeah, I mean, even Milton Banana's not doing anything either.
No, he's just yeah.
Vibing.
How cool would it be if your name was Milton Banana and you played
Friggin'
drums?
amazing.
Just
Did I ever
long
tell you
ass
that-
vamp at the end.
You know, I could have been Lester Earl Manus III. I think about that almost every day.
That's kind of the opposite of Milton
Milton
Banana.
Banana, but it's got a vibe.
Milton Banana. So that's I'm glad it's a great track. It comes in. It's kind of a weird track because the vocals, the melody is so playful and fun, and then it's just like kind of bebop-ish, bluesy at times. Really cool solo, I think. And then it just like vamps out, you know, with him playing like him Getz playing on top of it while they're just like oblivious and they're like, we are grooving. We are not going to be stopping grooving, just so you know.
Yeah, do your jazz thing over there.
It's like they're already on the beach in LeBlanc in Rio, and the guy comes along with sax. I'm like, cool, you can play with us. Where are they changing nothing?
You're not even
with your
here.
yakety sax.
Amazing track. That's my banger track. That's your banger solo.
Yeah.
I think both are deserved. For your banger track, Peter, you've got the immortal Quiet Nights, Quiet Stars, Corcovado.
Yeah. I mean, I love this tune, Sumi.
Possibly the best composition, maybe other than Desafinato on this whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's certain. I'm just looking, is it the, well, of course, Girl from Ipanema is the most played. But this is the second
Corcovado is so well crafted. It is a jazz musician's standard.
Yeah.
I think at this point.
Should we listen to a little bit?
Absolutely.
I love the way it comes in.
Quiet nights of quiet stars, quiet chords from my guitar, floating on the silence that surrounds us. Quiet thoughts and quiet dreams, quiet walks by quiet streams, and a window that looks out on Corcovado. Oh, how lovely.
Oh.
Cantinho, violão, esse amor, uma canção pra fazer feliz a quem se ama.
It's a little better with Brazilian Portuguese than English.
Pra pensar.
He's got, I mean,
that's a great song.
Yeah. They kind of punked Astrid by giving her the English to sing.
Listen, English has
I
a
think
lot
she
of...
spoke English though, and he didn't. I mean, not that you have to speak it to be able to sing it, but
English is a great sung language in a lot of respects. I mean, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, they sing it the hell out of some English.
Yeah.
Jerome Kern, you know what I mean? But for this stuff,
well, I mean, it was written
Portuguese
in,
it fits the music so perfectly. I bet Italian would work too.
Yeah.
You know? Estate is in Italian. It's language.
I call it estate.
It's
you wouldn't go to an estate sale, you go to an estate sale.
Estate.
Estate. Yeah, for this kind of groove, the language
That
has,
floral
it has
and
the
that
lilt.
liquid bounce that the
Absolutely.
language has.
And I think Getz got that with his phrasing too, but it's different. It's a little different. And to me, it's interesting, you know.
Beautiful. That's your banger. Can we play my banger next?
Absolutely.
So my banger solo
Banger solo, yes, sir.
is Stan Getz's solo on Desafinato.
Ooh.
And we can actually just play the whole track.
Okay.
For Desafinato.
If we must.
Se você disser que eu desafino amor.
You know, as famous as the song is, not as much of a standard because it's actually fairly complex.
It's hard. I know.
It's hard to remember.
It is.
A lot of little subtle changes.
Só privilegiados têm ouvido igual ao seu. Eu possuo apenas o que Deus me deu. Se você insiste em classificar meu comportamento diante musical,
Música.
eu
Music.
mesmo mentindo devo argumentar que isto é bossa nova, que isto é muito natural.
Natural.
O que você não sabe nem sequer pressente
Long form, too. Oh,
é que os desafinados
every time Joey plays anything, I'm like,
também
yes.
têm coração. Fotografei você
Photography.
na minha Rolleiflex.
Holy Flex is my I don't know what
Holy
it
Flex.
means.
Holy Flex, that guy can play guitar. That's like when the Pope shows up in the Pope Mobile. That's a holy flex.
But that's a pattern interrupter, that X. syllable at the end of that, because everything is no, ow,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, holy flex. It's like, what?
Sua música esquecer o principal.
Ow.
E no peito dos desafinados, no fundo do peito, bate calado.
Phrasing's fucking
No
ridiculous.
peito dos desafinados também bate coração.
I just think this solo is one of the best examples of taking the melody and running,
Yeah.
Up there with like Sonny's Blue 7 solo.
Right.
You start with this simple melody, and then he weaves this whole thing. You never lose the melody. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful pop soloing.
Yeah. This is a long solo too, and
It's a long form.
it's a long form, and I mean this in the best part. This is a really great meandering solo. Like Getz was a master of that, which is hard to do,
I mean, you can hear the melody the whole time.
Yeah, very referential to the melody. It's not about we're going to build up for this one big climax. It's just beautiful phrases cascading.
So sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just brilliant.
And there's nothing he plays in there melodically that doesn't have a direct connection with the harmony,
Exactly.
and like the movements, the little
And-
subtleties.
And that's it.
Like
They don't
the-
go back to the melody.
That's like on So Danzo Sambo. Same thing.
which might be why he sticks so close to that melody.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for that, man, because it's like that takes some real artistry to be able to do that.
Well, I think it's because too, like Getz, his vibrato, his sound was so beautiful. He kind of gets lost in that. Like he's very self-aware of that, but in a great way. In terms of like he leans into that on this record, especially. I think in a way that is sort of a corollary with the way the rhythm section is playing. It's like we're playing beautiful groove. We're not gonna. It's gonna seem like it's so non-fancy. Although if you try to play this, you'll realize how damn fancy this is actually.
Yeah.
But I'm just doing, and Joe Beam just, just the littlest things. But when you try to do this and play like this, you realize how sophisticated it actually is. It really the epitome of making the complex seem very beautiful and simple. I think Getz is playing too. That's what I'm saying. Like it's like there's many different peaks and valleys. It's not one big story arc or whatever. Every phrase is its own little story.
Can we talk about the sort of elevator music side of this conversation culturally?
Oh.
So like
A dark shroud comes across the studio.
Well, so I remember something that you said once that your father said about like I think it was Ahmad Jamal and that trio, and he said something like that's the best cocktail piano trio. Or
it was
that
Keith Jarrett.
It was Keith Jarrett.
You heard him live, and he's just like, yeah, it's the best hotel lobby trio playing standards ever.
Yeah, I think there's something about that conversation because I think albums like this can get dismissed, especially now. Decades and decades later, as they've been just like, this first of all so wildly popular, and then infinitely imitated. If you go out this weekend to someone's restaurant gig, there's a good chance they're playing a song off of this album.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It's not going to sound as good.
It's not going to be as great, and it's going to be sort of this like, for not to throw shade on our incredible restaurant musician scene, but there's going to be some kind of like, we're just, the bass player's reading it, never really checked it out. Nobody's really learned Getz's solo on it. or
Right.
how Zhao actually
There's not that
phrases.
cultural
There's no
connection to it.
connection to the actual
Yeah.
music. It just becomes the standard in a book that people read. And then that's how people hear this music when they're having their mimosa at brunch.
Right.
Instead of like, you know, what this was probably like in the early 60s to be a part of the cultural movement of it. And this, like you said, this fusion that was happening between jazz and Brazilian music in that time, which is very cool and very exciting. That these two cultures that
and
actually
very natural.
came up separately, but have a very, you know, with Tom Jobim's sophistication in, you know, harmony and the incredible rhythmic vocabulary of Brazil, have a very similar vibe that jazz has, you know.
Yeah, it's not a forced fusion.
No,
it's
not at all. It's very natural.
It's very natural.
Very, very natural.
Yeah.
So I want to, because this happens too, I think, with like Nat King Cole's music. Like it's easy for that to be cocktail piano jazz or whatever, or Keith Jarrett even, like with the standard stuff. And because people are ripping it off, not ripping it off, but people are playing it because, you know, obviously those songs are popular and easy to imitate.
And there's a nostalgia with them. There's like a kind of cultural beckoning to another time that people would use. But yeah, no, I totally agree. Could maybe a little foreshadowing to, I had a different bespoke genre, but maybe like elevated elevator music could have been.
Elevated music.
Elevated
elevator
But this is
music.
the kind of thing that if it comes on in that, like they don't actually play music in elevator, but when we were coming up, it was like elevator music or dentist office music,
right?
Which was pretty much the smooth jazz had taken over by the time.
Yeah, it was so funny
like
when people call this elevator music now because there's no elevators playing this stuff.
There's no music in elevators.
No, they're playing like all kinds of different.
Britney Spears, somebody contemporary.
Yeah, most of them are playing an actual ad for the Snickers bar in the lobby.
Yeah,
or for you know what I mean, or for the hotel services.
It's like targeted towards you. It's like recognizes your face and then plays what it thinks you want to hear.
Yeah, and if they're playing any music, it's going to be Taylor Swift or something like that.
Right, something even more globally generic. But it's like this is the kind of album that if it comes on in a rest, like as background music, it always puts a smile on my face as opposed to just some garbage.
For sure,
you know, or not even just garbage, but just like there's a version of this, and maybe you were alluding to that in terms of like restaurant gigs where people are a little bit checked out or whatever. We've been there, you know, we've been there ourselves. So we're no shade on that. I mean, sometimes it's hard when nobody's listening to elevate the music.
Yeah.
But there's also just sort of like the you know, the coffee house jazz version of this stuff that you hear and you're like, oh man, why don't you just play is it a money thing? They don't want to pay the royalties, whatever. But when you do hear the real deal of something like this.
Yeah.
And to me, this record is very much occupies a space similar to KOB for me. We're going to talk about that. But I
think there is a similar vibe there.
Yeah, when it comes on, it puts a smile on my face as opposed to like that's why I know I'm not a jazz snob. Because a jazz snob would be like, oh, this isn't even Stan Getz's best record from 1964.
Yeah.
The Lost Sessions from the Kalamazoo Lounge in Michigan was way better than this, you know? Because this was a popular record. This was a huge record, but it always puts a smile on my face when there's the intersection of pop culture and something that's truly artistically great and has some substance.
Well, it's so funny, man, because like I said, this is sort of the end of this because counterculture is going to take over. It's not going to be cool anymore to be
sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby.
To be so for it to be so well crafted,
right?
Like that's going to be considered then to be like, you know, Pat Boone,
right?
When something's super well crafted,
old fashioned,
as opposed to the Who, you know, which is like this raw stuff that's coming down the pike, staring
Kids
at this
music.
At the end of the 60s,
yeah,
which will then carry through a little bit through the 70s. Luckily, I think we get some polish back by the end of the 70s.
Right.
But there is that whole counterculture movement that happens right as this is going down, starting with probably the Beatles and the Stones, that is going to change. And then, you know, it's incredible to watch now from years and decades later, culturally, to put this in perspective. Where
absolutely,
it was. It's very cool.
Let's talk some over underdogs.
Okay, I was going to say.
Is it time for that?
Yeah,
I'm excited about.
So Stan Getz, underrated or overrated here? Because he's
both.
He's both a little bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to say is he overrated on this record because I think he's playing beautifully. This is not my favorite Stan Getz playing though. Like if someone were to just be like, "What's your favorite record?" I would actually say the Live at the Philharmonic Hall with the Oscar Peterson trio. I think he's with J.J. Johnson.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite. I mean, but I listened to that record early on.
The studio one as well.
Yeah,
with Oscar Peterson trio is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, we're not saying like, oh, Getz can only play good with Oscar Peterson. That's just coincidental.
Well, maybe a lot of people can only.
But this is his, I think to most people, this is the entry point and the exit point for all things Getz.
100%.
So I could say it's maybe a little overrated. He's a little overrated on this.
Well,
but,
it's hard
but
to
there's
say.
nothing he's doing wrong.
Yeah, it's hard to say someone's underrated when they're so popular.
Right.
When they have this, like, one of the most popular recordings, jazz recordings of all time. It's hard to say, like, oh, he's underrated.
But he's not on the cover, so that changes things too. Even though this is a huge record, he is, he's in the background on here. So,
but nobody talks about him as a tenor titan like they talk about.
Yeah, why is that?
Train or Sonny Rollins.
Well, I'm thinking Sonny Rollins because weren't maybe about the same age. Maybe Getz was a little older. But I mean, coming out of this time, why is Sonny Rollins so much more? Think about Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, Wayne Shorter coming out of the 60s up into like our era of saxophone players, Chris Potter and Branford Marsalis
you
and all
put
these.
Joe Henderson on the same.
Joe Henderson, yeah. But why are all of them seemingly? Although I've heard Branford talk about saying Getz was a big influence on him, but or an influence, but like doesn't Getz seem like he's less of an influence on all those others over the current generations?
But I wonder if it's sort of the Chet Baker effect of like so popular. You know what I mean? Having these huge albums, which may be a little bit under, like those albums are maybe shouldn't be as popular.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But then Wayne kind of hit that with Weather Report.
Yeah, but that's in the 70s.
Yeah, that's
true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
He's younger.
I mean, I'm just saying like Sonny and Wayne are not making these kinds of albums.
Right.
At that point.
Right.
You know
Joe Henderson did, but it was in like 1993.
That was killing it. That's killing.
That was supposed to be with Joe Beam. And
overrated?
I mean, I would say
rated properly.
I would say rated properly.
Yeah. He's found his place in history.
I do think Joe Beam's piano playing in general and on this record is underrated.
It's hard to say Joe Beam is underrated because he's such a legend. I think Joe Beam, do you see how I just said legend?
Legend. Jean Legend.
I think Joe Beam is underrated as a composer, as a player, as a musician, as a singer.
Wait
a second.
He is. How could Joe Beam possibly?
This is what I'm
saying. If I were to say, name me the greatest composer,
we take it for granted
from Brazil of all time, would he not pop up on the top?
He'd be number one, of course.
So how's he underrated for that?
Because he's underrated in the general popular. Like he should be talked about.
If people could name anybody, they would name him.
He should be talked about in the same breath as Gershwin and
he is.
Ellington. I don't know if he is. I think he's in sort of their S tier. He's sort of A tier. As far as like exposure that people talk about.
Well, I mean, unless you're saying American songwriters, yeah, he's underrated because he's not American. But I'm saying like if there's any awareness, I mean, I beg to disagree. That's all.
Okay.
It's okay. But I do think his piano playing is definitely underrated.
Piano playing
is
underrated.
Not, like he's such a simple player, but he's so crafty. And I mean, he's a real pianist, I think, too. Not in a very different way than like Oscar Peterson is, obviously, but in a similar way in that he plays the right stuff in the right situation, not just on his music. I mean, of course, this is his stuff. But I just think, yeah.
No, he plays like the brilliant composer and arranger that he is.
Yeah.
Like he's not this virtuoso pianist, but he plays exactly the right thing at the right time.
Overrated, possibly. Question for you, Joao and/or Astrud's voice.
Let's get into it. So Joao's voice is not. It's beautiful. First of all, famously didn't Miles Davis say he could listen to Joao read the phone book and it'd be sexy or something like that? He said something like. I mean, I know that's a cliche at this point, but I think Miles actually
sexy phone books. That's a cliche.
Do you ever have the back pages on the RFT? Isn't that kind of sexy phone book?
Okay, boomer. Yeah, no. So I kind of fall like, I think the totality of his vocal delivery.
Why do you hate Joao's voice?
I do not hate Joao's voice. I'm saying if you just were to say just his instrument, I say so maybe a little overrated in that to me.
It's not developed.
Yeah, it's not. But his delivery with his phrasing, his musicality, the whole thing I think is not overrated. It's amazing. It's innovative. It's beautiful on this record. But just if you take his voice as an instrument, you know what I mean? It's to me, it's a little bit overrated.
I think it's interesting because I think we're staring down the pike here at this countercultural revolution that is going to bring in voices like Bob Dylan's, like Lou Reed, like Nico's, like a bunch of voices that are distinctive, and not perfect,
right?
And they're not great singers,
right?
And I think Joao's kind of the pioneer of this. It's not
interesting.
It's not that he is a great singer, but it's not that he has this Nat King Cole, Johnny Hartman incredible velvet tone. And I mean, he's got this like low mid-range thing. He can be a little pitchy, doesn't have the greatest breath support or resonance or anything like that. He sings very, very quietly.
Yeah.
And his phrasing is genius level phrasing.
Yeah, that's what pushes it over.
The way he expresses and it fits the compositions is like the perfect match. In the same way that Bob Dylan's voice is obviously slurring his pitches all over the place, but it matches those songs he wrote so perfectly. It helps tell the stories of the songs and gives you this, fits the vibe of the songs in that
Joao
same way.
definitely had that same thing.
And Joao has that thing. So I think it's a little precursor. I can't.
And the musicality, like obviously his guitar playing, his musicality, he's a composer, like lyricist, like you layer that in with that, whatever slight deficiencies maybe we're noting in terms of the quality of his voice are so overshadowed by the whole package, right?
I mean, we talked about crooners before, but if you put him up against Bing or Sinatra or even Elvis, he's losing the vocal battle. As far as like tone and pitch and the overall.
But so it's interesting you say Sinatra. Sinatra had this distinctive instrument, beautiful instrument.
Incredible.
And very interesting phrasing, but not nearly as sophisticated as Joao's phrasing and musicality. You know what I mean?
Peter.
Not as many dimensions, for me.
Okay.
Why
do you hate Frank Sinatra's voice?
I love all these guys. Love you.
I would put 40s Sinatra up against anybody. I mean, I know the ring-a-ding-ding stuff can be a lot, but I would put the 40s Sinatra.
Well, ring-a-ding-ding, ring my bell.
When he was,
you can ring my bell.
I would put that against just about anything.
Yeah. Okay. What about Astrid's voice? I love her singing in Portuguese.
Again,
the English, I'm not as convinced. Again, although she spoke English, apparently spoke several languages, but
I think it fits just perfectly with the music.
For
and
sure.
I think it's a real funny thing because, again, she is losing the battle to all of the popular singers, Judy Garland, any of the people around this time, especially if you get into Ella Fitzgerald or someone like that. She can't hold a candle vocally, but it fits with this. And it is funny. Put in the comments, if anybody knows what I'm talking about vocally, is there anybody else in the 50s or 60s before the Beatles and before rock bands became a thing that had that wasn't a great singer, but fit the vibe before Joao, and Astrid? Because I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody offhand. Like everybody was very polished and had to be, and I can't think of too many people. I guess you could say Chet Baker has a similar quality, unpolished.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be the only one I could think of.
I think sometimes when the musicality side and the musical there's always the musical element, but like that intersection of, melody and harmony and phrasing and stuff, when that level starts to go high, like that really opens up some things that would suggest a less than polished type of voice being more acceptable and interesting, which I think is great. I mean, it's
well, and then good. When singers start to sing their own songs later in the 60s, then it becomes that.
Okay, let's talk about a few apex mountains, because we think we may have reached some of those, but we're not sure. But one thing, and I just sort of came to this as we were listening to it again this morning, I think this may be apex mountain for OG smooth jazz records. And I would previously, and I know a lot of people are going to probably arm wrestle me if this is even a smooth jazz record, but I would put this, if you're going to talk about Kind of Blue,
famously,
maybe Time Out being a smooth jazz records, and maybe I'm overlapping too much with like super popular
Live at the
minimalist.
Pershing?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call that smooth jazz. That's a great.
Well,
record.
then how are you defining smooth jazz?
Smooth jazz, stuff that is just like an oral bubble bath. Just a beautiful.
Gross.
It's jazz. Aural, AURAL.
Right? Okay.
Aural bubble bath. Just something that you can just like luxuriate in. It's very easy on the ears.
Right.
It's jazz, but there's not a whole bunch of crazy soloing. Although this has some crazy soloing, which is kind of weird. But it's like there's nothing like A Love Supreme, which was from just a couple years after this, right?
Yeah.
Or the next year, right?
The next year, yeah.
So that no one's ever gonna. I'm never gonna argue that this came out in ¡64.
I think that's the thing here, isn't it?
But we divest and diverge. No one's ever going to say, including, sorry, no one's ever.
64, yeah.
64. So no one's ever going to, including
65.
myself, is going to say A Love Supreme is an OG smooth jazz record. Clearly it's not. Like it requires a certain attention. Like it's not background music. I'm not saying that this has to be in the background only, but it works as background music.
Well,
that's what a smooth jazz.
If there's one thing we learned about Time Out, it's that it's not very smooth.
That's true. That's
when
not
we
a
listened to
smooth jazz
Time Out,
record.
it was not.
That's
very
a popular
smooth.
record.
Yeah,
that's a weird record.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean with KOB and with this. It's like jazz albums that Aunt Linda loves.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
If you're going to say any smooth jazz records occurred in the 60s, this is the one, I think.
I see that. I see that. Okay. Apex Mountain for both Stan Getz and João Gilberto.
I don't think so. But together, yes.
I think
sure.
I think it is both of their Apex Mountains.
Really? Musically?
Popularity. I mean, Apex Mountain is how much juice do you have in the industry?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's their biggest record. It's like one of the biggest jazz records of all time.
I think it's their biggest, for sure. And possibly Joe Beam, definitely Adhered.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything more popular that any of those four people have done.
No, but we don't always talk about Apex Mountain. It's not just about, it could be Apex Mountain for popularity, but like for me, it's not Apex Mountain for Stan Getz's playing. I don't think. It's for his best-selling record, yes, but
yeah.
To me, it's not his most interesting playing. It's up there. I mean, it's very good.
We stole Apex Mountain from the Rewatchables podcast. And just like that podcast, we still don't know really what it means. They don't either.
Oh,
the people we stole from have no idea. So
Apex Mountain for A&R Studios and Creed Taylor.
Possibly.
In New York City with Phil Ramone as the engineer, which I was not aware of. Yeah. Although there was a lot of great stuff went down there. So, well, one thing we do know, is Apex Mountain for elevator music.
Elevator music.
Yeah. Let's get to the awards.
Okay.
These are always fun.
I love awards.
Not that we stole these from anyone.
The John Coltrane Theft Award goes to
Joe Beam.
I think
on the piano.
It has to.
Yeah.
Yeah. He steals the record.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most subtle theft ever.
He steals it on the compositions too. He's the best part about the album, and he's just playing chords.
And it says featuring. So is he actually stealing anything? He's right there on the cover, but I couldn't think of anybody else.
The Oscar Peterson Overplaying Award goes to...
I mean, this is a record where there's actually no overplaying. And actually, I put João on guitar just because he's constantly playing, but that's the gig. And it's like there's nothing... I don't know. Maybe I should change this. What do you think? Maybe it's Stan Getz. Maybe we should go with Stan. Because he kind of is overplaying.
I don't know if there's any overplaying on this album.
That's true. But I'm saying, like, if this is such a minimalistic record, there's actually a lot of notes on it. You know?
I would say if anybody gets it, it should be Getz. I think Zhao's just laying it down. He's not overplaying at all.
But he probably plays the most number of notes. If we had a note counter, like a word counter.
Yeah, but they're meant. That's meant to be the style.
That's true.
You know what I mean? To me, overplaying means you're hilariously playing too much in the style of Oscar Peterson accompanying Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald. You're just soloing underneath them singing the melody.
Right. Which Zhao is kind of doing. Well, he's not soloing, but he's
comping.
He's comping constantly. I can tell you one person that's not overplaying, Joe Beam.
No.
There's no.
He's
not winning that award. First Call Subs. Piano.
You have Ileana Elias here.
Yeah. Who was maybe not available at that time. But she came to mind because I have her and Herbie Hancock.
Hancock is hilarious.
I'm thinking about the Joe Henderson, like when they needed a pianist and on the Verve record and Joe Beam had passed away. That was supposed to be the original thing. They brought in both of them for that record. So we know they can do this stuff.
Can I throw a name in the ring here?
Yeah.
That I think might be the perfect fit?
Oh, I know who you're going to say. I'm going to type it in here. And so this will prove. Do you see it coming up?
No, that's incorrect.
Not it? Okay.
Nope.
Sorry. I put Hank Jones.
Count Basie.
No.
Imagine if Count Basie were... What are you talking about? No. Imagine if it was... Yeah, exactly. No, just like... You know what I mean? Just like these little... Maybe. That's basically what Tom Joe Beam's doing with those chords. True. You know what I mean? I would say Count Basie or maybe even Duke Ellington could be an interesting fit.
Yeah, Duke I can
on
see.
This. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
It would be interesting.
On tenor for Stan Getz. Stan is not available, which is going to make this title difficult. I think Joe Henderson. For sure, Joe Henderson from the early 90s.
I think, yeah. It'd be fun to hear.
He had a great feel for the Joe Beam's music.
It'd be fun to hear Ben Webster on this too.
Ooh, Ben Webster, right.
Yeah, it'd be fun to hear Ben Webster.
You jazz it up. Guitar. I put Oscar Castro Neves because, again, I heard him. I'm really thinking about the Joe Henderson group.
Yeah, you are.
From the early 90s.
What about our very own Romero Lubambo?
Romero Lubambo, what am I thinking? You idiot. What kind of idiot do you think I am?
Perfect.
A big fat idiot. That's what I am. Okay. Bass.
You have written here Ron Crater. I assume you mean Carter.
Dude, if you would contribute to this section, you could have had to say that. Yes,
Ron Carter, who played bass on Stone Flower.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's CTI, right?
Yeah.
That was another Creed Taylor. Christian McBride.
You can put him on anything.
Yeah.
Basically.
John Patitucci came to mind. We don't talk about him enough. Like he would kill. I mean, that's along the lines of actually Ron Carter and Christian McBride, John Patitucci. They could come in on. You can almost plug them into any record we're going to be listening to on this podcast and say they could sub it and kill it. Drums. Edu, our very own Edu Ribeiro.
He would crush.
Also, Paulo Braga. I definitely think about just long time associated with Antonio Carlos Jobim, of course, and also played on a lot of the stuff with Joe Henderson doing the Jobim.
Can I put out
stuff.
a dream one too?
Yeah.
Jeff Hamilton.
Jeff Hamilton.
He would the Brazilian stuff very well.
He would nail it. Yeah. He would nail it. It would be authentic. He wouldn't look authentic, but it would sound authentic. It would sound for good. Sure. Bespoke genre. What are we calling this? Because this is almost like if you said Getz, Bossa Nova Getz, Stan Getz, Bossa Nova, Getz, Gilberto, like this gives you the feel as soon as you say this record of what it is. It really is like a genre. Now, I'm not just talking about Bossa Nova, but this approach to it.
Specific thing. I have Mad Men Swamba.
That's good. That's very good.
Mad Men, as in the TV show, and Swamba, as in it's not quite samba and it's not quite swing. It's
right. Well, when Getz gets out of the way, it's Bossa Nova, if not Swamba. Yeah. Okay. So I like it, Swamba. I've got Caipirinha Casa Bossa. Casa Bossa.
Wait.
Caipirinha Casa Bossa, because you got your Caipirinha, the national drink of Brazil. Casa, home, Bossa, jazz.
Phone Book Funk.
Home Book Funk. Not this record, but it could be. Yeah. Let's talk about the cover. Can we throw that up there again, producer Caleb? Well, we can look at it here too.
Yeah, the cover is by Olga Albitzu.
Good old Olga.
Puerto Rican artist.
Amazing. This is beautiful.
Her cover is gorgeous. It's minimalist. It fits the vibe. You can, you put this album again on that piece of furniture in your grandma's living room.
Oh, so
it has the record player on it. It's going to look perfect.
Look at the proportions of the.
Got a giant ashtray here that's in a kind of like kidney shapes. You know what I mean? And it's lime green.
Yeah. No, it's so good. So good. The design in the back design is great. Yeah. Do we give that a rating anymore? I'm going 9 out of 10 on that one. No, we don't do that though.
We do not do.
Okay. Give me a hot take, Adam. Do you have any?
Hot take.
Or rant? How can you rant against this record? You'd have to, well, there are some elements we could rant against, but.
Yeah, hot take is that we should leave these tunes alone for a while. That's my hot take.
Really?
I think so.
Why? Why can't we just play them
After hearing them, after we just listened to them, I feel like, and they've been covered so much.
Yeah.
Let's all agree, just 2 years, that nobody plays anything from this album.
That's not going to happen.
I know. That's my hot take, though. I think if we all just gave it 2 years of no more gigs where we're playing Corcovado,
then we come back fresh.
Come back fresh.
Fresh and fun.
Maybe actually learn the head to Desafinado. You know what I mean? Learn a couple of those solos from Stan Getz.
Maybe play Girl from Ipanema in D flat or A flat or E flat instead of just F. Like in a flat key because it sounds so good there.
Because it sounds so good.
Yeah.
Get the melody right on Ipanema. Yeah. Let's take a break. Let's take a 2-year break. We'll come back fresh in 2026.
I like it.
Yeah.
I've got a hot take on this. Some serious contention and strife in the studio can actually lead to beautiful music. Yeah. So if the now this was even, I believe, recorded before there was even more tension and strife, I'm sure, between
personal
Getz
tension and strife.
Right?
Yeah.
Due to Astrid being married to Joao and then later on allegedly partnering up with Stan Getz in a romantic way. So I'm sure it only got worse. But regardless, like whatever rhythmic tension or groove tension they had, the album is beautiful. The proof is in the pudding, as we used to say.
Proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes that tension works. Ask Fleetwood Mac,
Yeah, right.
Rumors.
Exactly.
It's the greatest.
Those aren't rumors. Those are truths. Yeah, well, the album's called Rumors.
Similar vibe between Rumors and this, actually.
Oh, that's right. With the jumping around.
Yeah, a lot of things going on. Snobometer.
I've
got this at a 1. I don't think you
Formerly
can get any
the
less
Snobometer
of a snobby jazz album than this. This is the most commercially friendly jazz album you could possibly imagine, in my opinion.
I'm giving it a 3 because I don't think it's the most. I mean, wouldn't Kenny G, like if everything's a 1, nothing's a 1. What is Kenny G Songbird? Didn't we set that as a 1?
You can have multiple ones.
But I'm saying, like, then is it just binary? It either
so
a
is
1 or a 10.
Kenny G Songbird a jazz album?
Yeah, as much as this is, I think. Oh, did I just say that? Hot take.
That's another hot take. That's for you.
Well, I mean, it's not a rock album. Is it an instrumental pop album? Whatever. But we would cover it on this bespoke. No, we wouldn't actually.
It's an interesting discussion.
I don't know. I'm just saying that there is a level, like there's a little bit of snobbiness to saying something that's super commercial actually has great artistic merit. There's a snobbiness to that take. And that's why I would say 3.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel you on that.
Because that's kind of where I sit in it. Like,
I'm gonna
I
stay
love
with
this
1,
record, but yeah.
I hear you there. I get it.
Yeah.
Better than KOB. Better than Kinda Blue.
No.
Agreed.
No. But just as smooth. Smoother than KLB, I would say.
It's like a smooth caipirinha on a warm Rio de
It's like
Janeiro
Miles Davis
day.
is reading the phone book as he's walking in his bathing suit down, drinking a caipirinha.
Last category. How would you rate our pronunciation of Brazilian Portuguese on this episode?
1.
Like for me, it's -5 for my pronunciation.
Yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
worst at this.
Yeah. Shall we roll out with some roll up out of here with the final track, which is I want to make sure that this is Vivo Sorrando. Here we go. That was fun though. That was fun though.
Till next time.
You'll hear it.
Tempo em que vou perguntando se gostas de mim.
Flex.
Tempo de falar em estrelas, falar de mar, de céu assim. Falar do bem que se tem, mas você não vem. Você não vindo, a vida tem fim. Gente se rindo, falando, zombando de mim.